Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a single military strike that pretty much shattered years of diplomacy and redrew the map of the Middle East. If you want to really understand the forces shaping our world, you are in the right place, so make sure you subscribe to the channel now.
So let's jump right in. We're talking about September 9th, 2025. This is the day an unprecedented Israeli strike hits Doha, Qatar. And look, this was not just another headline. We're talking about an act that sent shockwaves across the entire globe and basically tore up the diplomatic rulebook. All right, so to really get our heads around this, we're going to break it down. We'll look at what actually happened, why Israel did this, how the world reacted, and maybe most importantly, what does all this fallout mean for the future? Okay, first things first. Let's just lay out the basic facts. What exactly went down that day in Doha? Right, so this strike, it absolutely did not happen in a vacuum. You've got to rewind the clock nearly 2 years to the October 7th attacks. For all that time, Qatar was basically the go-between, hosting these intense peace talks, at the request of the U.S. But then, boom, a shooting happens in Jerusalem, and just 1 day later, you've got Israeli jets in the skies over the Qatari capital. The timing is just critical here. And the attack itself, man, it was surgical. The target was a Hamas-linked building, sure, but the key detail here is where it was, a busy residential neighborhood. So while it took out 5 senior Hamas officials, including a really key negotiator, it also caused what they call collateral damage. A Qatari security officer was killed, civilians were wounded. This wasn't some remote military operation. This was chaos erupting right in the middle of a city.
Okay, so this is the part that probably has you asking why, right? Why on earth would Israel take such a massive risk? I mean, they're not just striking an enemy, they're striking a key U.S. ally that was literally hosting the peace talks.
Well, publicly, the message from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was crystal clear. He basically announced this new no safe haven doctrine. It was a direct warning to countries like Qatar, saying, hey, the days of sheltering groups we consider terrorist, those days are over. He even compared it to how America responded after 9/11 to frame it as a necessary, justified action.
But, and this is a big but, there seems to be a huge gap between the official story and what a lot of analysts think was really going on. The official line was, this is retaliation, plain and simple. But look at the timing. The strike happens just as Hamas is looking over a brand new U.S. ceasefire proposal. So a lot of people started to think the real target wasn't just the Hamas officials, it was the peace talks themselves.
So you can probably guess what happened next. You can't just carry out a military strike on the soil of another country, especially one that's a key diplomatic player for the West, and not expect a massive international response. And boy, did it come. Instantly. Yeah, Qatar was furious. That's probably an understatement. The prime minister called it state terror and a major violation of their sovereignty, and they immediately started looking at legal action. But the real immediate victim? Diplomacy. Qatar basically said this act killed any hope of getting the remaining hostages released. Just gone. And what about Israel's most important ally, the United States? Well, their reaction was, let's just say, very telling. The U.S. was apparently told about the strike just moments before it happened, but President Trump went on record saying he was not thrilled with it. He actually said it didn't help Israel's or America's goals. I mean, that kind of lukewarm support from Washington, that's a really big deal. And the pressure didn't stop with the U.S. Oh no. The European Union, they went even further. Their president came out and openly threatened real, tangible consequences. We're talking sanctions against certain Israeli officials, even talk of freezing trade. This was getting serious. And in the region itself, the reaction was like a shockwave. It was swift and it was unified. You had the UAE's president flying straight to Doha, a huge show of solidarity. Saudi Arabia was calling for actual action against what they termed brutal aggression. You have to understand, this wasn't just diplomatic chatter. This was a clear sign that this one strike was putting the entire fragile peace process across the Arab world in jeopardy. Okay, so we've heard all the angry words and the diplomatic fallout. But let's get down to it. What are the real-world consequences? What has actually changed because of this? Well, the fallout was immediate, and it was severe. Just look at this. Any hope for a ceasefire? Undermined. Getting the hostages released? Mediators said the chances were killed. Israel's own position on the world stage? suddenly facing the real risk of global isolation and regional stability totally jeopardized. It's a pretty bleak picture. And that's because the immediate aftermath was just this cascade of negative events, one thing after another. Peace talks, frozen solid. Qatar starts trying to rally its allies for some kind of collective response. You've got protests flaring up all across the Middle East. And meanwhile, on the ground in Gaza, the fighting just keeps going.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, the Doha strike really did redraw the lines of this conflict. It just shattered the old diplomatic norms, it put incredible strain on alliances, and it's left everyone asking the same terrifying question. What comes next when the rules you thought everyone was playing by just don't apply anymore? If this explainer helped you make sense of this really complex event, do us a favor and hit that like button and share it so other people can get the full picture too. And we really want to know what you think. What's your single biggest takeaway from all of this? Drop it in the comments below. We read every single one.